about what I'm doing on both sides. I don't feel this is a kind of a tough slate to really feel like you want to get different and you want to try and do some things. I've got a few ideas of what we can do to get a little bit different here, but I don't really to be honest, I don't really love this slate. And if there's one thing I need to make a note to do is to try to get a little more San Diego. I was going to fade them entirely because I don't like stacking bullpen games on fairly large slates, and they're going to be popular. Those are the justifications as to why. But the more I look at it, I do think that they stand probably as the third most likely team to go completely nuts tonight. Maybe fourth, depending on how you feel about the Yankees and that situation. But the way I've got it right now, my favorite stack, assuming the weather looks like it's going to be better for hitting, it looks like it's going to be okay to play or whatever, is the KC Baltimore game, but especially the KC side of it. I know there's nothing groundbreaking with that. Everybody sees Matt Harvey and wants to play everybody. Okay, there's ways you can get different. I don't think Santana is going to be as owned as he probably should be. You got Michael Taylor for cheap. The guys I'm sort of avoiding are Nicky Lopez and probably Olivares, although I don't mind if you want to include him into a 5-man. But it's fairly popular, okay? Manoah, who you all know that I love, I also don't mind taking the other side of that game here with the Yankees. I think that there's actually both sides of this game. You've got an extreme hitters umpire for Manoah who can get a little wild. And this is not a team you want to get wild and mess around with, the Yankees. Now, we've seen better lineups from the Yankees in the past, but it's still a pretty good lineup all the way through. And Brett Gardner, you get the cheapo at the top, and I think other than him, no one's really going to be owned on the Yankees. So I think that's an interesting way to go, or going to be as owned as maybe they should be, whatever. Guerrero, Simeon would be my favorites on the other side, but I do like Bichette quite a bit as well. And Kirk is an excellent catching option at 3.4. And as I'm rattling through the games I like or whatever, guys jump on in and say what you're doing. I do have a couple Boston stacks, and I think that's where I actually might prefer over the Yankees. Excellent hitting weather there. As much as I think really highly of McClanahan, sort of a similar situation that we've got with how highly I think about of Manoah. McClanahan is similar. He in this last matchup against these guys, he gave up 8 hits in that game. They were all singles, but he gave up 8 hits. He did strike out 8 in 5 innings. He's got great stuff, but this game's in Boston, and I think Boston actually stands a chance to really have a big game here. Obviously, you know how I feel about McClanahan in general, as well as the bullpen is really strong. I feel like Eovaldi's been much better than people give him credit for this year. I do have a little bit of interest in him, but again, the extreme hitters ump does kind of throw me off a little bit, and I don't mind if you want to stack Tampa on the other side or mini stack them, which is what I'm doing, because you'll get low ownership on Brandon Lau. You'll get low ownership on pretty much all of them. Franco. I think Margot will have some ownership because of his price. I think Nelson Cruz will have some ownership because he's absolutely killing the ball. But I think he'll be okay other than that. The Atlanta game is the big concern, right? So what do we do with this situation? Stack or fade would be my initial thoughts. I do worry about pop-up storms in Atlanta in general. It does make me like Toussaint less, who I initially liked quite a bit today. But I do like Atlanta. If all the weather was not a concern, I would have Atlanta right at the top of my list, right there with the KC side of things. I like both. I think, well, not both sides of the Cincinnati-Chicago game. I think you can argue for Gutierrez as a pitching option, and I have no problem with that as a pivot off of Toussaint, especially considering the weather. And we know the Cubs can be hit or miss. We know that we've seen Gutierrez with a couple ceiling games. They've been off a little bit the last couple games, but I do think he's interesting. And I think Cincinnati ends up really low owned on DraftKings because their price is on FanDuel, and I just don't think people are going to look their way tonight. And if you can get past Alec Mills, who's pretty good against righties, so you'd want the lefties against him. I think that you could be looking at a big night here. So I'm interested in the Cincinnati lefties, and I have interest in Patrick Wisdom always, as well as Ortega. I think is interesting for this matchup. Another sneaky stack that I have actually a couple of. I have a lot of Eduardo Escobar. I like his price at third base. I think that this is a really good. I think Gibson's a good real life pitcher, as I always say, but he's definitely can be combustible. If he can be around the zone, he'll give up some home runs. And I think getting like a 3 or 4 man stack of Milwaukee, there's your primary or your secondary stack, is an interesting way to go at zero ownership. I like the lineup they're rolling out. It's a lot stronger with Escobar there. We haven't had Escobar, Wong, Vogelbach, Yelich there all season. So I actually kind of like the Milwaukee, the way they're rolling it out. On the flip side, I do think that Peralta, I'm not going to play anybody from Philly, but I do think Peralta is a good tournament play because I don't think anyone's going to play him, even though we know that he's probably going to be limited, all of these things, yada, yada. But if he's cruising, I mean, through 6 innings, through 4 innings, let's say, he's going to probably go 6. And we know his K upside is pretty awesome on this slate. I'm just going through the games here, talking through my plays. I think the Dodgers are an interesting sneaky stack just because of the talent level of the offense. That's really all I've got. Wainwright's good, but I think this Dodger team can get to anybody and just going to be unowned as usual on this slate. I think even as one-offs they make a lot of sense, especially Seager and Muncy. But I do think all of them are in play, and as a stack, I definitely will have one Dodger stack at least tonight. That's why I don't love this. I'm sort of spread out, and then I'm trying to fade San Diego, but I do think that they stand a chance to have a big game against a pretty bad bullpen game for the Angels. I do think Darvish and Montas are the top two pitchers, and I will be using both of them. And then your last sneaky stack that I'm not really getting to as much as you might think, it would be Oakland. I don't think they should be sneaky. I actually thought initially they'd be more popular than they're going to be on this slate. But I think if there is anything lower, you lose Atlanta, whatever, let's say, or we worry too much about that. I think Keuchel, who just can't seem to get anybody out, he's been walking everybody. You do have an extreme pitchers umpire in this game, which maybe you could say helps him out a little bit. I'm not suggesting by any means playing Keuchel, but I do think that it does make me like the stack for Oakland a little bit less, as walks have been an issue which they never used to be for Keuchel. And Oakland is a team that has a lot of power that they can utilize. So sort of sum it up, I really do like I still like KC the best. I like Baltimore on the other side of it, especially Austin Hayes. I just think the guy's a much like we're starting to see him come into his own. I like the Yankees as again, should be lower owned than I would have thought. I like Boston. I like Cincinnati. And then I think want pieces of Milwaukee, the Dodgers. I'll use only pieces, probably not stack San Diego, and maybe a piece or two from Oakland. But it's mainly going to be KC, Atlanta, assuming the game goes, as my favorites, then Boston, New York. I do have some interest in Toronto as well. And I think you could definitely argue for Tampa Bay. A lot of these stacks are rating really similar for me today. So that's why I'm having trouble getting so much different. But I will read my ownerships of some players. Maybe that'll help you give an idea of what I'm doing. What's up, guys? Everybody in chat. What's up, Jamie? What's up, Smooth? My pitching ownerships are different. So I'll tell you what I've got right now for my pitching ownerships, because I don't know if I'll have a chance to update it. I've got 58% Darvish, 55%. Now, it's going to be the same. It's going to be 50 some odd percent of Darvish and Montas on DraftKings. I know that's popular. I can get different with my stacks very easily on this slate. I'm going to take shots on the smaller field, smaller buy-in, larger field tournaments with Peralta. I have him almost 20%, but they're mostly smaller buy-ins. I have 20% of Eovaldi, 20% of Minor, 10% of Gutierrez, 20% of Toussaint. And I'm probably going to be lowering some of that Atlanta because of the risk. In terms of hitting, though, I want to just I've got Merrifield in 35% of my lineups. I've got Santana in 30%, Perez in 40%. So even though I talked through a lot of liking other stacks, I still do want to make a core around this KC side and even the Baltimore side as well. Austin Hayes and Ryan Mountcastle being my favorites. My favorite value play, the guy who I can't seem to get out of my lineups on DraftKings, and I probably should play him on FanDuel because of it, is Tyler Naquin, who will probably be owned over there as well. But Tyler Naquin and Michael Taylor being my favorite value plays. I have 80% of Naquin right now. I'm probably going to lower that a little bit. I have a little bit of interest where I'm not playing. I don't want to stack the Angels. I don't want to pick on Darvish. I don't want to pick on Montas. But I do think you can argue for like a bat here and there. Joe Adele stands out. I like his price. I think he's coming into his own a little bit as well. Really talented kid. And I think that's where you'd want to try and pick on Darvish. Maybe you get the stolen base even upside. Anybody like that with some power too. Shortstop, mostly Mondesi. I have 25% Bobby Dahlbeck. Like I just mentioned, 40% of Merrifield, 20% of Simeon, 20% of Guerrero, 20% of Gallo, 20% of Judge, 20% of Gardner. That's pretty much, and 40% of Escobar. I really like Eduardo Escobar tonight. Just keep an eye out for this guy. He's a much better hitter, and we paid like $6K for this guy in certain stacks sometimes. Karn says he went with Miley last night. That's great. I actually think Miley, I don't know that would even be the optimal play though, because wasn't there other guys who scored more who were cheaper than him? Some of which we talked about, I think. So I'm glad it worked out for you. If it did with your lineups, Carnes, I always am happy to hear that. Minor actually still has talent. I think that there's something against this Baltimore team. I've had trouble wanting to play lefties not named Robbie Ray or huge strikeout guys against them because they don't strike out that much against lefties. But this is a little bit of a different lineup. We don't have Mancini in there, which already changes things. So I think Minor's in play. But like I said, I have 20% of him on DraftKings, won't play him on FanDuel. That's where I'm at with him. So that's basically, what I'm running through. On FanDuel, again, I still really like KC. I know that they're going to be owned, so I'm trying to mix them in with some of these other pieces. And I like Atlanta as well, who's also going to be owned. So what do we do? We try to get over to some of the Yankees the Boston and Tampa Bay side of things, maybe not as stacks, but certainly as complementary pieces. JD Martinez being my favorite option in that game. I like Renfroe, I like Kike as well, and Brandon Lowe because of the low ownership. No pun intended. It just sort of happened. I do think Cincinnati is the team that's getting overlooked on DraftKings and on FanDuel. I think they will have a little bit of ownership, especially Moustakas, who's like, come on, 2,300, let's just play the guy. I don't care even about the ownership if you're going to get different elsewhere. But you could include Joey Votto at low ownership. You can include Kyle Farmer in your stacks. Tyler Naquin is going to be 40% in the big buy-ins on DraftKings. He'll probably end up maybe closer to 10 or 15% on FanDuel. You can include Tucker Barnhart in a stack to get different. You can include the minimum cost Max Schrock to get different in your stacks on Cincinnati on FanDuel, because they are going to have some ownership on FanDuel. They just won't on DraftKings. And again, I'm just going to keep mentioning that play Patrick Wisdom. Guy's got immense power against a pitcher who's had trouble with striking people out at times. I think that's a kind of interesting route. And I do think I want to try and get to some Dodgers. Wainwright's been awesome. This Dodger team can hit anybody. You throw a mediumly hard throwing right-hander against them. They just crush these type of pitchers in general. I don't mind if we want to try and take some shots against Wainwright with some Dodgers on FanDuel to get a little bit different. And Dodgers, Yankees, and Boston just shouldn't be as low owned as they're going to be. And I am going to take advantage of that. Even though, again, like I said, I like McClanahan quite a bit as a real life pitcher. I just think this is a tough situation, especially with the extreme hitters umpire and the winds blowing out about 15 miles an hour. All right. So Carnes, if you want to play Minor, I'm saying you can go ahead and do it. I just don't think it's I don't think he's not the guy I want to start my lineups with. I absolutely could see him having an easy time and pitch really well against this Baltimore team. But other than Peralta and Montas, who I'm taking a stand on, and they're popular, I'm sort of spreading out my ownership, as I mentioned elsewhere, because I do have all these pitchers rated point per dollar wise very similarly. So that's just the way I'm doing it. And like I said, I want to mix in a little bit of Peralta because I think the ownership will be really low. And I understand it. There's a good chance we only see 50 pitches out of him. I think that if he's rolling, which is definitely possible for him, he's an excellent pitcher. You're going to see him maybe extended a little longer. They do still want him geared up for the playoffs. And maybe, if they can get him to, even if he throws 90 pitches, there's still a chance he's ends up the best pitcher on the slate. But I think you want to use him with the other high upside or even popular guys like Darvish or Montas, because I do think one of those guys puts up a good number tonight. I really like Montas as a ton as a pitcher, but I never really always go out of my way to pick on these White Sox. Although they don't walk a ton, they do strike out some, and I think that's where Montas is why he's in the up there for me. Actually, just from a total logical standpoint, you see Darvish against a weak Angels lineup that doesn't even have Ohtani, and it seems like the easier play. I think that is probably the easier play. But I have Montas rated really similarly because I just think he's in a better form than Darvish is at this point of the season. A bunch of St. Louis in your optimal. Okay, I have zero interest in St. Louis, but again, anybody can do what they want to do. I did not even cross my mind to play St. Louis today. The Dodgers with a fairly bullpen-ish game. And by the way, what's really weird is you could make an argument for Mitch White. Two starts ago, this guy put up 30 fantasy points. He might have probably only pitches 3 or 4 innings because the Dodgers need to win every game right now. But if he can cruise. He's got some talent, this guy. I'm not interested against the Dodgers bullpen in stacking St. Louis. If you want to take a one-off or here and there, go ahead. I just don't see them as being a team that I would try and target. I would actually, personally, I'm trying to actively get away from them. Their prices make them playable. Nootbaar being one of them, I always like to play. But you got Nootbaar, Bader, Molina, and Sosa all really cheap. So if you play 2 of those guys with 2 other ones, of course, it's going to optimally try and spit them out. I think if I was going to play any of them personally and try and target, which I don't think is the best option, it probably would be Goldschmidt for me. All right, guys, ask any questions or whatever. I'm going to get out of here in just a bit. Smooth, but I'm just saying, I don't think that you need to cross them out. I'm just telling you what I'm doing. I don't see that as being the stack that I want, but individual bats from there, I can see with the price why you're getting them. And I don't think it's terrible. I just don't think that's where I'm going at all personally. And because this is a funny slate, because it's a big slate that feels like everyone's small in what they want to do. But the truth is we've got a lot of really talented offenses, and some of the ownership projections I just really have questions on, because you really telling me that Boston now with a run total that's jumped up to 5 on each side that, we're not going to be playing Boston guys? Other than Dahlbeck, I think we should be playing some Boston guys. I think we should be playing some Tampa Bay Rays. Again, I don't know about it as the main stack, but I do think they keep popping up for me as that secondary stack along with the Blue Jays and Yankees. Just in terms of talent level of offenses, shouldn't we that be what we attack when we have everybody rated so similarly? I think yes, unless we have, if we had a horrible pitcher that we could take against these other guys, let's go do it. But these are just much more talented offenses. And if everyone's going to switch over to, play the KC Baltimore, maybe you pair it with some offensives you actually like. Favorite bats, Aaron Judge, but he's expensive. Joey Gallo would probably be second, followed by Stanton for me on New York. And then obviously Guerrero, Simeon, and Bichette, as I mentioned before. You also have the really cheap option of Corey Dickerson, who could turn into someone else, but would you really want to bring in a lefty to face these Blue Jays, considering they're almost all righty bats? I don't think so. So one thing I'm going to actively do, though, is because I have so much of Tyler Naquin, is to turn a few of those into some Corey Dickersons, because you have the same price, and I think it's going to be significantly lower ownership. So that is what I am going to do as we speak before I forget. Yeah, I think I've got to take Peralta out of that thing, though, too. Yeah, okay. But yeah, drop in any questions, drop in any other thoughts. DF wants to play Vladimir, but that Cubs game could go off. I think it could too. I think it's a sneaky game to target, especially the Cincinnati side. I'm not as interested in the Chicago side, but you have a bad bullpen behind Gutierrez, who's had trouble at times. So absolutely, I can get on board with it. I don't think that's what I'm going to do. The Cubs side, outside of Wisdom and Happ, maybe Ortega. But it'd be more of a mini stack for me. But I definitely think it's viable. I think it's extremely viable to go with that route. I have zero problem with it at all. Let's do this. We're going to put in Dickerson. And we are going to put in, that's another thing to do is if you're going to play Cincinnati, even though they're going to be lowish owned anyway, to play a stack without Naquin is kind of an interesting route. And that's something that I'm doing a little bit of in the interest of full transparency. I think it's not a bad route to go on this kind of a interesting slate, let's call it. All right, let's get to it and see if there's any questions or thoughts in the chat that I haven't addressed. Doesn't look like, what pitcher are we going with on FanDuel? For me, it's pretty simple. It's going to be one of the two in my main lineups. It's going to be one of Darvish or Montas. And right now I'm playing both. Those are my pitchers. So I don't have a whole lot of interest in trying to take. Look, if you want to take a shot on Manoah, there are strikeouts in the Yankee lineup. I don't like this pitch. If it was if you had the same umpire that Montas had, I would definitely take a shot on doing that. I just don't find myself getting there quite today. But I thought about it. I did think I don't think it's like crazy. Manoah, you're looking for ceilings here, and I think he's a guy who definitely fits the bill, who could have a huge performance against a high strikeout Yankee lineup. But it's just a little tricky with it. Same thing with Eovaldi. You have horrible pitchers umpire. So it's kind of tricky. Not that you should let umpires dictate everything, but when you have these guys close and you're looking for pivots, I'm just going to stay with the guys I feel comfortable with and try and get different the ways that I'm talking about. I'm going to get out of here in a few minutes so I can finish building my lineup. So I'm going to give it a minute while you guys just go ahead. I'd love it if I could just show you what I'm doing and you guys could check it out. A little heads up, guys, I will be recording with Rody shortly in a little bit. I got to confirm with Brody. If you're in the chat, confirm with me what 7 your time is, my time, or what it is East Coast time, because I get mixed up with working with so many people all over the country, and I also have some site meetings I have to do now that I'm finally back home and ready to let it fly. I'm up to 50% of JD Martinez, by the way, on DraftKings, and I'm going to try and get some of them on FanDuel. I really think that the Braves would be the team that, if people are going to get off of them because of the weather, I think then we have to jump off. I just think they're going to be really popular, but I still really like them. And maybe you can get low ownership on Rosario to round out a stack. I think you can get low ownership on Duvall. No, it won't be low on Duvall. It'll be medium on Duvall. But Riley, I don't think is going to be that owned at 5,400 on DK. Dansby Swanson will be the lowest owned, I think, if you have 5K. So you can get different with your stacks, and that's probably what you want to do if you're going to play Atlanta. Don't just play Soler, Albies, Freeman, and d'Arnaud, because that will be the most popular four-man. If you're going to do that, include one of those other guys as a fifth man. After baseball lock, yeah, I can do that, Rody. We'll keep our phones on in case we get any late news. I do have an 8 Eastern site meeting, but we can get stuff done with that anyway. Sounds good, Rody. So So Kevin's asking the question I just sort of went over a bunch of times about the weather issues. I am moderately concerned. I am not playing Atlanta one-offs, but I am stacking Atlanta. Just gonna happen. That's what I got. My big buy-in stacks on DraftKings are, the main stack is the unfortunately popular Royals, but the other ones are the Blue Jays, Yankees, Reds. Those are my other three favorites to go there. So that is where we're at, guys. I'm going to wish everybody luck out there. My ownerships, again, if you have any questions about my ownerships out there, they are a little bit different, and I don't know if I'm going to have a time to edit them with my lineups before lock. So I'm trying to give them all to you just as we speak. You know, on FanDuel, I'm only playing a couple of the big buy-in lineups, and I am still heavy on the Atlanta KC side of things. But I just think you want to try and get different within those stacks using some of the bats we talked about. And I think that I want to, play Atlanta without a lineup without Albies or something like that in your stack. You know what I mean? Like something like that to get a little bit different. But the other stacks I mentioned, I do think the Toronto, Boston, Tampa situation is something that people should look into. I'm going to make a quick change here and play Albies in the lineup I don't have that has these guys. That will differentiate me just a little bit. Yeah, I had a good night last night. I hope you guys did as well. It was a fun one. I really thought I was gonna have maybe a little bit more of a chance, but it was top 20 in like all the big things. Just I didn't play that many lineups, and felt good to to have some solid lineups. And my takes I think were pretty much on point. Just didn't quite get there, and that's just the name of the game sometimes. All right. Looks like everyone's out there. Good luck, everybody. We'll hope to see you at the top. Really appreciate you guys tuning in and being a part of everything. We are going to cancel anyone who's not a member. They're going to be removed from our Discord by the end of the month, as well as Sheets is doing a survivor pool, and we're going to start making some of those things for premium only, some of the videos. Just wanted to give you guys a heads up on that, but we appreciate you guys staying with us, and let's crush it tonight. Good luck, everybody.